Welcome back. Panel is here. Matt Bai, national political columnist for Yahoo News. Helene Cooper, Pentagon correspondent for the New York Times. Our own NBC News national political reporter Heidi Presbella. And appearing on Meet the Press for the first time, which is an error on my part, John Podhoretz, editor of Commentary. I know, I feel like I'm saying this. So you're the first timer, so I'm going to get you the first shot at this. I'm going to put up Peggy Noonan from this weekend because it was a fascinating column she did overall, sort of both trying to explain Trump world, but also what she saw. And here's what she writes. What is amazing, this is on the Cohen hearings, what is amazing, though, is that such a rebuke, such an attack on the essential nature of a president, and by an intimate, has no equal in our history. John Dean said there was a cancer growing in the presidency. He didn't say Richard Nixon was the cancer. J-Pod?
Okay, so Michael Cohen, if the SDNY, Southern District of New York, or whoever, hadn't broken down the door of his hotel room in the Regency Hotel, you know, in the summer of 2018, would he have said these words that he said this week? Of course not. He threw himself on the mercy of the world that hates Trump, having spent 10 years doing nothing but defending Trump. So his moralistic attack on Trump has to be taken with, not a grain of salt, but a mountain of salt. Having said that, the weird thing, I think, about the Cohen testimony is that despite Jim Jordan saying he was a terrible liar, in some ways he helped Trump on the larger question of Russia and impeachment by saying that Trump did not say, I want you to lie to Congress, by saying that he had attempted to purchase the videotapes mentioned in the dossier and had decided from that experience that they did not exist. So, that and a couple of other things, as somebody who said, I hate Trump now and he's terrible and everything is terrible, and if he is such a confirmed liar, why didn't he say, Trump told me to lie? If he had said it, Trump would there be subject to the possible charge of subornation of perjury, but he didn't say it.
Heidi, Michael Cohen's credibility increased because he bailed Trump out of a few things.
He did. And that's to John's point, that there was a number of cases here where he actually defended the president against some pretty nasty accusations that have been swirling around, like the elevator tape, the rumors of that he had somehow hit Melania in the elevator. And so he kind of built up his credibility because he wasn't 100% trashing Trump, and especially on the collusion point. He said he didn't see evidence of collusion. And so he wasn't 100% trashing the president, and that made him more credible on the new things that he did bring to the table, which was the news here that there had been hush money payments, and not just one, that were made throughout the entire course of this presidency. He also suggested that there is another separate criminal investigation going on at the SDNY. He said there were things he couldn't talk about. And tantalizingly, he mentioned his final conversation with Trump as something that was in that scope and that he couldn't talk about.
So that was that, Matt Bai, and we have the story this morning about maybe it's a pardon that they're doing. But let me ask this. Impeachable? Is he John Dean? John Dean brought the end of the Nixon presidency. Did Michael Cohen?
Not in that particular performance. I agree with you guys. He's a liar, and you have to, and we've known this, and you have to take that at face value. That being said, I thought, and I agree with Peggy Noonan on this, it was the portrait of the president he painted, particularly in his opening statement, that I thought maybe perhaps is more damaging in the end than any particular thing on which he exonerated the president or implicated the president. I mean, the fact, talking about the president looking at him and saying, if I was going to go to Vietnam, you think I'm stupid? The president who he says never indicated he loved the country or wanted to make it better. This is a guy who spent, years and years at his side. I think there's a lingering, sort of cumulative impact of that intimate a portrait and damning a portrait painted by someone so close to the president. That by itself is not impeachable. I do think we're going to get to impeachment at some point. I don't think Democrats are going to be able to hold themselves back as they get closer to 2020. And I don't think it matters because, frankly, nothing's going to drive this president from office. You have to think of him. He's not Nixon, as I said. He's Buddy Cianci. He's Marion Barry. He's a guy who loves. Come at him. He loves it, right? He wants the fight.
He does. Wow. Helene, this was great. Washington Post on Wednesday about why did House Republicans just attack Cohen and not defend Trump? Here's what one anonymous House Republican said. Truthfully, it is tough to ignore some of the gross immoral behavior by the president, said one senior House Republican. But the reason there was no defense is because there is no defense. As Jim Jordan didn't want to defend certain things of the president.
No, I mean, I thought that was one of the extraordinary things that came out of the Michael Cohen hearing was that so many Republicans didn't bother, no, you didn't hear people saying Trump isn't a racist. You didn't hear people saying, let me defend the president. You heard them, making a concerted effort to go after Cohen. And that, to break down his credibility is clearly the Republican strategy. One of the things I thought, and, I used to cover Buddy Cianci at the Providence Journal.
Yeah.
It's completely blown me up with this whole, that's a great comparison.
Yeah.
But one of the things I thought was a little bit sad about the reaction to the Cohen hearing is that the United States, people in the United States now are so in their respective camps. You have the left way off to the left, and the right at the right, and nobody is listening to facts or anything like that that's presented. People are not coming out and saying, wow, he said this, he said that. It's all been baked into the process, and people hear what they want to hear.
I think Jim Jordan set out the course for the Republican Party from here on out, which is, I don't want to talk about any of this. I want to talk about tax cuts. I want to talk about the economy. I want to talk about foreign policy. What we have here, beginning in 1998, when Bill Clinton got into so much trouble, polling started separating out the president's personal job approval from his work job approval. You remember? So Clinton's numbers went way down on his personal job and stayed there, but his work job approval was high. This is the track to re-election for Trump, if there is a track to re-election for Trump. If the nation can be convinced that the news is good and Trump's character has nothing to do with whether or not he is managing the country effectively, they will have a case to make for his re-election. And that requires them to say, I don't want to talk about any of this.
Final point.
When it comes to impeachment, you just listened to Jerry Nadler, who is the chief Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, and he says point blank they've got to have more Republican support. We've seen what works in history with Nixon, which was bipartisan, and Clinton, which was very partisan.
So the bottom line is they're not going to impeach him until they have the votes to impeach him. Okay, in a moment. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.